When you turn on the microphone, do you know who you're talking to? Are you talking to yourself, or a demographic, or the program director's idea of who your listener might be? In radio, we like to think that we're targeted, but our target is usually defined by the rating service demographics. For example, your station may focus on 18 to 49-year-olds. Really? You're that broad? No, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking we're really targeted. We focus on 18 to 49-year-old women. Let me tell you something. A lot of stations in the world want 18 to 49-year-old women. So who specifically is your target? Is it this 49-year-old? Or is it this 18-year-old? Really? That's your target? That broad? What do these two people really have in common, and how do you broadcast to both of them? Maybe you need a little bit more focus. In a few minutes, I'll introduce you to Amy, and I'll show you how to build a composite listener target that allows you to really get to know your listener, instead of sweeping everybody into the middle and generalizing about it. And when you're finished, you'll feel like you really know Amy. This gives your station power, the power to allow individual listeners to feel like you're just for them. And that's at the very core of one-to-one communication, where you're broadcasting to many, but making each individual really feel it. I'm Tracy Johnson. Welcome to Know Your Listener, a seminar on how to build a composite target profile that enables you to communicate with listeners personally, intimately, and emotionally. To begin, we have to get deep inside the brain. In each listener's brain, there's a tiny space that's receptive to incoming messages, to new stimulus. This valuable space is attention, and attention is hard to get. Now, your job is to penetrate their awareness, to cut through all the noise and become meaningful to them. That little dot, that little attention is the gateway to the heart. The heart, just 18 inches lower, is the key to winning loyalty. But the battleground is highly contested because everybody else is competing for attention too. And we're not really just competing with other radio stations, but with everything else and everyone else for that attention. And the listener is doing their best to ignore you. They build a little bubble around their attention. They protect it because they have a life. And that life adds a barrier to getting through to them. Things are more important to them, like chores and activities and their families and their jobs and paying their rent this month and even going out and stopping to get groceries. They're doing a million things at once, multitasking. And your radio station, your show, your personality, it's all in the background. You're competing with all of these other things for attention that they're trying to protect. Now, how serious has it become? It's certainly got more difficult to get the listener's attention over the past few years. The average consumer receives 5,000 advertising messages per day. All of them are carefully crafted to edge your message out. So what does that equal? In a 16-hour day, about how long you're awake, that's 312 messages per hour, or 10 messages a minute, or a new message competing for attention every 6 seconds. To earn their attention, we have to become more important. And that means being an indispensable part of their personal life, part of their routine, part of their lifestyle, something that they feel like they can't live without. And that means reflecting their lives now, in the moment, identifying who they are and really connecting with them. We must be relevant personally, and we must be relatable with your personality. And that's getting harder and harder. Regardless of your target, the way the audience uses radio has changed as well. Now, it wasn't that long ago that radio was already an important part of their lives. The alarm would go off in the morning and the radio would come on. It's different now, isn't it? The alarm comes off in the morning and they turn their phone off. We were their source to find out how to dress today, what the weather's going to be. Now, click of an app, I know what the weather's going to be. I don't need you to tell me about it. We also told them how long it was going to take them to get to work. With the traffic report, traffic is now on my phone. And we also provided a connection to the outside world, to their friends, give them a sense of community. Now everyone builds their own community. And they also discovered new music from us, new songs. The morning show is their constant companion for a lot of reasons that were already built in. But all of that has been replaced. And if you add to that the fact that television stations are now programmed for audio, it means we have new competition for entertainment in the home. so they can enjoy the television show without actually watching the television show. And in some cases, if you look at this TV show, it might be better if they're not seeing the hosts that are on the TV. So it's not surprising that we're losing the war for attention at home in the morning. Look at this chart. Survey asked, why do you not listen to the radio in the morning? This is people who said, I don't turn the radio on until I get to the car. The number one answer at 40%, I'm too busy. Really? I'm too busy to turn on a radio? In fact, 2/3 of this panel, 40 plus 27%, are either too busy or they don't think of it. 67%. I don't think we have a radio problem. I think we have an importance problem, a relevance problem, a relatability problem. And that means we're just not important enough to matter. The role we play in their life has changed. They really don't need us anymore. And that means we have to make our shows more indispensable. It means that meaningful content that connects the brain to the heart is more important than ever before. And that starts with really knowing who your listener is. I teach my clients to do this by building a listener composite profile, which will enable you to connect to the heart. Now, this process creates a connection that allows great personalities to reach a very broad audience while focusing on a very narrow target. That's why Ryan Seacrest and The Burt Show and Jeff and Jer will attract demographics that are far outside of their target. In fact, The Burt Show reaches as many 35 to 44-year-olds as they do 18 to 24-year-olds, but they've got a much narrower target than that. Now, it takes some work to gather this data. We do it with what I call the OAR method, O-A-R. O stands for observe. Observe their lives. Read what they read. We go where they go. We do what they do. We watch what they watch. We be where they are. We eavesdrop on them. We pay attention when they're talking, when they're standing in line at Starbucks or at the movie theater. We listen to what they're saying and how they're saying it. In other words, our ears are up, our attention is up, our antenna is up, and we're always paying attention to what's going on in their lives. All of these things, through observation, are subtle clues that will help us get to know them more. The A is to ask them. We have to be curious. We have to start conversations. We have to find out what's happening in their lives. Ask them on social media. We can start conversations at promotions and appearances and events instead of hiding in the tent or the station van. Don't hide. Ask them. Indulge them. They love it when you talk to them about them because they're very self-indulgent. Find out what they care about. Find out what motivates them. Find out what they worry about, what they discuss with their friends. So we ask. And third, we research. Focus groups are great for this. Instead of asking the typical radio question, ask questions about their lifestyle. We can gather 8 or 10 listeners in an informal setting around a hotel ballroom or a conference room or really anywhere. We can buy them some pizza and some soft drinks and find out about their lives, not just their radio listening, but about them. Because if you know everything there is to know about them, it becomes a lot easier to program your station and your show to appeal to them. There's a lot of ways to do this. You can get your friends involved. You can get coworkers and other departments involved. Listeners from your database. You conduct polls and surveys online. One of the best resources is to ask open-ended questions before your music test begins. And I'm going to give you an example of how one of my clients did that, and it changed the way they programmed their station in a little while. You can also build survey questions that you insert into every online contest or promotion that you create. I can show you how to do that if you want to contact me. This is how you connect with Amy. Now remember Amy? Let's build a composite profile of Amy's life and go through the steps of how to do it. These are some of the things we're going to discover about Amy. We're going to find out how she lives, what's important to her, what are her biases and her regrets. We're going to learn where she goes and what she does. We're going to find what she finds likable, what she worries about, where she hangs out. What are her dreams, her priorities? How does she spend her free time? What does she talk about when she and her friends go out for drinks? How is she going to spend her free time this summer? Is she going on vacation? Where is she going to go? What does she want to do? What's exciting to her? Who does she admire? Why does she do the things that she does? Why does she have the job that she has? What does she want to be when she gets a little bit older? What are her ambitions, her self-image, her fears, her hobbies, and what are her turn-ons and turn-offs? And a lot more. Then, armed with this data from OAR, remember OAR is observe, ask, and research, We'll build a composite listener profile. It's a profile that's represented by one specific person. In our case, we're calling her Amy. We're going to build her life profile that represents a broad range of emotions and attributes. Now, we've already identified things like where she goes, what she does, what drives her, what impacts her, and her tastes. We're going to then build a description of Amy, a detailed description, make her come alive in a very real way. In our case, in this case study, Amy is a young adult woman. She's 23 years old. Now, this imaginary station that we're programming is a top 40 station, so it makes sense that Amy's 23. That's right in the heart of the station's 15 to 34-year-old target demographic. Now, because there's a lot of different types of Amy's in the audience, Amy has a child. She's a single mom. She's not married. So she has a life experience. Having a child allows parenting issues to come into the show because a lot of the listeners who are between that 15 and 34-year-old female target demographic have kids. So we want to make sure that our composite of Amy represents that part of their lives. But being unmarried makes her young, single, and hip. And it means that she's out in the dating circle as well. So our composite of Amy represents people who are both single and people who are married, people who have kids and people who don't have kids. She's friendly with the child's father, but they aren't together. And she's dating some, but she's not really serious about anybody right now. She thinks men are kind of shallow, but she really is looking for Mr. Right, which means her relationships are complicated. She has a lot of dating issues. Relationships are important to her. But she understands and relates to some mature problems as well. So you're kind of getting the idea of how we can talk to one person and have that one person represent a much broader audience. She was going to a university, but she had to drop out and go to work full-time because of the baby. In fact, she has 2 jobs that she's working. That means that Amy is struggling, just like a lot of people who aren't able to find a job right now. They're worried about their future. Amy's worried about her future. She's worried about her career. She's worried about her life. And this allows us to talk about school because she hasn't completed school yet. It also allows us to talk about work, about success, and about failure. Her 2 jobs, she works at night as a waitress and a hairstylist part-time during the day. She's just a single mom trying to make ends meet with a strong work ethic, and she's responsible. Now, she's not in the job she wants. She would like to go back and finish her education, but she's looking for something more, most like most of the people who are in that target demographic. As a result, Amy has money issues, just like the audience. She's living at home with her parents to save money to buy a condo. Now, living at home with her parents means that she has parent issues, just like the younger end of the demo, those between 15 and 19 or 20 or 21. And some of the older end of the demo might be struggling with some of their older kids as well. So again, you can see how this is much more mass appeal than just a single 23-year-old. She's obsessed with celebrities and their lives. Pop culture is very important to her. And this includes style and fashion, the latest clothes that come out, fashion and what's new and what's hip. She can't afford to shop the more upscale places, so she spends most of her time and money shopping at the mall and going to Walmart, H&M, Banana Republic, Gap, Costco, and places like that. She's really busy with the 2 jobs and the child at home, so she does carry out at least 2 times a week, sometimes more. And she'll usually go out with her friends on either Friday or Saturday nights, and usually it's with her close friends, some of them still from high school. That's where they talk about guys and money and clothes and celebrities. She hates things like big egos and double standards and being tired, and she's always tired, and she hates how other people drive. She hates being fat, but she's not really fat. She just thinks she is. She cares about her child, her family. She cares about her appearance. She cares about getting a better job and a better career, about finding that guy, and about money. So by now you probably have a pretty good picture of Amy and who she is, right? But it's important to go a little bit further. We're not done yet. We want to take Amy's attributes, her qualities, and break it down into a snapshot that identifies the emotional Amy, the topics that really represent the composite. This is where we define not just what Amy does, but who Amy is. This is where we build a psychological profile of Amy. And when we build this psychological profile, we can put it all on one sheet so it's right in front of you. And as you take a look at all of the different topics, and not really topics, but attributes, different characteristics of Amy's life, you can see how a lot of different topics will fit into these characteristics. These characteristics actually drive the topics, because we want to speak to the heart of Amy, to the emotions, to be really provocative in creating a response from Amy. For example, friends are important in her life. That means parties. A lot of the relationships that she has aren't face-to-face anymore. They're by text. There's a distance. A lot of her friends from high school have moved away, so there's distance in the friendships. Some of the friendships and relationships that she has are with coworkers. She's also making some new friends, and a lot of the new friends are replacing some old friends, and she's struggling with that. Social media is a big part of her social life too, and relating to friends, and that's replacing some of the in-person interaction. Another part of Amy's life is school. She's worried about being unemployed. She's worried about her career. She has a fear of failing. She is feeling a little bit guilty because she dropped out of school because she had to. She'd like to go back to school, which gives her conflicts in her mind. She feels a little bit unfulfilled. She would love to balance her life a little bit more between her family, between work and school, but she just doesn't have the time. And housing's a problem too. She just can't afford to move out of her parents' home and be on her own because she's saving up so she can finish her career and get back to school. Relationships are really important. So is social media. A lot of her life is built around social media, whether that's Facebook and Instagram. She's worried about her profile, putting the right things that are out there. It's a little bit egocentric, and it's also exaggerated a little bit. She's kind of living another life online. Relationships are a critical part of what she's all about. She's single, but she's got a lot of characteristics of a married person in that she has a child. She has definite opinions about cheating and about dating and about boundaries, and she's worried and wondering about sex and finding a guy when she has a kid. So all of these things enter into the mindset and the lifestyle that she lives. Self-image is an important part of it too. She'd like to exercise more, but she doesn't, and that makes her feel fat, even though she's not. So it's the guilt that she feels and that concern for impressing others. So she watches what she eats, but she can't help herself but eating fries. She's worried about finding enough time for herself so she can work out a little bit more. All of these things enter into the stress and the lack of sleep that she has, which affect Amy's self-confidence and her self-image. And her family is an important part of it too. They're helping raise her child. She also has an older sister that didn't come into the profile, but she does, and that brings in some drama. She's worried, starting to get worried about her parents' health and what happens when they get older. And she also has some concerns about her parents' expectations for her. They're disappointed that she isn't finishing school and that she doesn't have a better job. All of these things affect how Amy thinks, how she responds, how she reacts, how she lives. And all of these things affect how we speak to Amy, how we talk to Amy. Now, this composite doesn't tell you what to talk about, but it actually expands the possibilities to talk about just about any topic, because now you know how to talk about it, to really relate to the composite. It doesn't change what you do. It affects how you do it. You approach the show with a different sensibility, a different angle. It's easier to find the entry point for content. By the way, if you create your own station profile or target composite profile, this makes a great poster. You can blow it up into an 18 by 24 or 24 by 36 and put it on your wall, put it in your station. And it's great to remind you what it is that you're targeting and who it is that you're talking to. You can download a template of this in PowerPoint format and then customize that profile for your show from the website. There's a download link, and if you have trouble with it, just let me know and I can send it to you. Now, this goes way beyond demographics, as you can tell. It enables you to tap into Amy's emotions and all of those relevant life groups, the lifestyle groups that your audience has in common. It's the difference between being relevant, which is facts, and being relatable, which is connections. It gets to the essence of how your audience responds to you, what drives their interest. And it's going to reveal to you the way that you should be speaking to them, the way that you should talk to Amy, the sensitivity that you show. It's going to show you how to appeal and how to prompt a response, how to create a reaction, how to make her laugh. You'll also have a good sense of the boundaries and what's in good taste and what's not, the things that you should avoid when you've stepped over the line. Really getting to know Amy, or getting to know your target composite profile for your station and for your show, takes time. It takes a lot of time with OAR, observation, asking